Hey, everybody. What a year it has been. I'm Alix Kendall, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank you so much for supporting Life Unscripted, and you made all the time and effort so worth it. Believe it or not, I've hit the 6-month mark, so now it's time to celebrate some of the best moments of 2025. And I picked out highlights from 4 podcasts. The debut of Life Unscripted began with Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. And the date was June 4th, and this was months before the ICE raids in Minneapolis. I felt that was important to point out. And I spoke to the mayor about the potential of that very thing happening. And here's what he had to say. A lot of immigrants are concerned about, for instance, the idea that ICE can come here to this city and essentially take them away with no due process and kick them out of the country. And so to protect the immigrants here, you're saying, okay, so it's not a priority for Minneapolis, but how would you deal with something like that, ICE coming in?
We don't deal with ICE coming in. We don't coordinate with ICE in that fashion. And so, look, I'm not someone who's going to overpromise and underdeliver. I understand the concern about ICE coming in and taking somebody without due process. So to the extent there is that concern, I get it. And you got a team here in the city of Minneapolis that loves you and that'll work with you. In Minneapolis, it's not like illegal aliens. These are our neighbors. We love them. We're going to stand with them. We'll stand up for them. Again, we have a prioritization as to what we're dealing with. And where we're going to contribute our resources is not immigration. That's just that's not our deal.
Since that date, we know what happened now. Dozens of people, many Somali, were pulled out of their cars and out of their homes. Many of those people, U.S. citizens. Now, Minneapolis is my hometown. It's where I live today. And I can tell you, the Somali people make this community more diverse and stronger. And I stand with our Somali community. The holidays and delicious cookies, they go hand in hand, especially as gifts. If you're not into baking, Molly Bees loves to bake. Molly's a single mom in Alaska whose cookies have been featured on the Food Network, Martha Stewart Living, and the Grammy Awards in those little goodie bags. I'm obsessed. Small batches of goodness. Check out these flavors. Dubai chocolate brownie, chocolate cherry amaretto, and lavender lemon white chocolate. Here's another one. Maple syrup, crispy bacon, whiskey, and white chocolate chips. You heard that right. Bacon and whiskey in a cookie. Boba doodles. It's just fun to say. I'll have a bag of boba doodles. Little mini snickerdoodles with a melt-in-your-mouth experience. Great gift ideas. You can find them at mollybees.com. That's mollybz.com. And for my listeners, use my promo code LifeUnscripted to get 10% off. And you can find the link in my show notes. Comedian and co-creator of The Daily Show, Lizz Winstead, was also a highlight of Life Unscripted. Now, she also is from Minneapolis. She has her own podcast called Feminist Buzzkills, and she shared how she drummed up the confidence to break into the TV business and write for networks like Comedy Central.
I acted like a man. I was like, I'm going to keep to myself that I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go in there with like that mediocre man confidence. And I was like, that sounds great. And I said, the one thing that I think we should do is let's take on the news if we're going to report on it and then make fun of the news as well. So it's a character in the show. And they said, that's a really funny idea. And then the craziest thing happened. They said, we're not going to make you do a test pilot. We're going to give you a year on the air to work out the bugs. So we were able to cast everybody and then try the show out, warts and all. And that is the way to do a show like that so that we could get in the vibes. And then I'll just stop this by saying the thing that was wild was we launched in July of 1996. Early in July. 2 weeks later, MSNBC launched. And in October, Fox launched. So there was no really cable news. So we launched kind of making fun of cable news and news magazines and that kind of thing. And then the whole media landscape changed, and then we just decided to follow along with all of the ways that they were doing so much weird stuff.
Another favorite moment from the highlights of 2025 Life Unscripted was talking to Heather Poole. Now, Heather is an author, and she's a flight attendant, and she has seen her share of weird passenger behavior.
One of my funniest stories is just I saw a young girl all we did was just roll the cart back and went to serve a lady. She was sitting in a row by herself, and she was completely naked. But I loved the story because she had her seatbelt on, which I thought that was pretty great. She had her seatbelt on, but she had nothing else on. And then we told her to put her clothes on. She didn't just go back to her row and put her clothes on. She climbed over the seats completely nude. So yes, there is probably some substance abuse going on there, but also, I have to laugh, but also not laugh because it's probably, we don't know what's going on.
There might have been some, either substance or mental health issues for sure.
But for me, what's the craziest thing to see is just people taking my stuff. I might have a Egg McMuffin that I leave on the galley counter and somebody just comes and takes it. I might have a sweater I just left on my jump seat and I walk down the aisle, someone's wearing it. And what other job is there where people just feel so comfortable with where they are, they just take other people's things and think it's okay to wear them, or eat them or whatever.
So let's review. Please do not strip down mid-flight. But if you do, keep your seatbelt on, and that will give you extra points. And don't steal the flight attendant's stuff. It is that time of year when we want to be cozy, right? And here I am in my pajamas. I love my Cozy Earth pajamas. They are made of bamboo, which gets softer every time you wash them. Cozy Earth also offers sheets, bedding of any kind, socks, anything you want to be cozy in. Cozy Earth has it. So now is the time to buy also holiday pajama sets, men's, women's. Check them out. It's a holiday season. You get 41% off if you use my promo code Life Unscripted. Just go to my show notes and you'll find the link. Click on that and you get a deal. Let's get cozy. My last of this 2025 Look Back podcast was called Courtney is a Badass, and she lives up to that name. She's a reporter, and she's a former colleague of mine who became an amputee advocate. And this is after losing her leg in a freak boating accident. And she's also a former Team USA para-snowboarder. Tell me about the first time that you got back on, because I'm sure that your journey of healing was part of that.
Yeah, so it was my second night in the hospital, and one of my husband's parents, they had a connection with a man who was on the U.S. Paralympic snowboard team, Mike Schultz from St. Cloud, Minnesota. And him and his wife came down to the hospital, and they said, listen, we hear you like to snowboard. I snowboard, obviously. He said, I want to help you get back on your snowboard when you're ready. And he said, how does February 1st look? And I'm looking at the calendar going,
wait, what?
Now, I'm on a lot of pain meds right now, but that is 4 months away. Are you aware of the situation? I thought he was crazy, but he held me to it. So we stayed in contact, and February 1st came, and we all went out as a family. I strapped back into my snowboard. I made some turns at Powder Ridge up in Kimball, Minnesota. And listen, it wasn't the mountains of Vail, Colorado, but just to feel the wind in my hair again. And it was just that feeling of oh, you can do this. Your life is not over. And that's what that was for me. Your life is not over.
I mean, a big part of it must also be just, who you are. You're just I'm going forward. I'm not going to let this get in the way. And really, from that point on, it seems like you were on a mission in many different ways.
It's funny. Everyone responds to trauma and grief in different ways. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. For me, I've always been a naturally positive person. So when this happened to me, obviously it was a loss. It was a life I was not prepared for. It was a life I knew nothing about. I didn't have a friend that wore a prosthetic leg. I knew nothing about the amputee community or this life that was ahead of me. But I knew that my life was not over.
Now, Courtney, as I mentioned, is an advocate, and she helped change legislation in Minnesota. This is after discovering a loophole in boating insurance.
So we knew this was going to be a lifetime of cost. And so he went to file the claim and they said, sorry, she's not covered. And what are you talking about? I had a huge liability policy on the boat and an umbrella policy over that. Well, there was a thing called the family exclusion in both the boat policy and the umbrella policy that excludes your spouse or your children from coverage. Thankfully, after a few years of fighting, and I was up against it, I was up against the insurance lobbies in this state, and they were ruthless. I got the bill passed. So now in the state of Minnesota, your children and your spouse are covered under your boat insurance now. And it doesn't impact me. It was not retroactive, but I'm happy that for the next person that this happens to, that they will be able to cover the costs of their disability.
Have you ever gotten up from a great night's sleep, but then you look over at your pillowcase and you're like, ew, what's on there? Well, I have the perfect solution and a great gift for the holidays. They're called Copper North pillowcases. And what makes these unique is these are copper-infused silk pillowcases, which means they're antibacterial. They'll keep your pillowcase cleaner. Also, your skin will be glowing more and your hair less frizzy, less breakouts. They're great gift ideas. And this is what's perfect. They're also machine washable. So I've arranged a 15% discount for my listeners. Just use the promo code LifeUnscripted. You can find it in my show notes. Click on that link and you will see the Copper North pillowcases. But again, you still have time. So there you have it, highlights from 2025. I can't wait to share more of them with you in the coming year. I'll be back in January of 2026 with a great lineup of guests. So thank you again for listening to Life Unscripted. Please like and subscribe. And also, if you can, leave me a review. It really helps support the show. So have a great holiday season, and I'll see you soon.